Michael Smerconish is about to interview President Obama live on this nationally syndicated The Michael Smerconish program, and this marks the 6th conversation that he has had with the president, so let's listen.
A candidate for the highest office in the land. If things go according to plan, my expectation is that I will get into subjects that include the war on terror, the $14 trillion debt that's faced by the nation, the housing crisis, the president's jobs proposal, including unemployment benefits, the role of the citizenry. I had a tremendous call from a listener yesterday who said, please ask the president what we should be doing. I have some thoughts in mind about the 2012 campaign as well, including some rule changes that are contemplated in states across the country, including my native Pennsylvania. And I want to talk about the best way in which to spend stimulus money. So all of that is on the agenda. I really appreciate so many of the questions that have been submitted to me via Twitter, via Facebook. I have perused them all. It's hard to satisfy all aspects of the audience, hard to give everybody what they're looking for. The only commitment that I have made to the White House is to be respectful and direct, but never any pre-screening, never any please ask him this and don't ask him that kind of a thing, and I really welcome that kind of dialogue. I will tell you this by way of additional background. In each of our 5 prior conversations, in every discussion that we have had thus far, I asked him not only about the hunt for bin Laden, but also about the hunt for bin Laden in Pakistan. As a matter of fact, it was interesting to roll some tape just before the break of prior conversations where in our last discussion, which was 11 months ago, I found myself saying to the President of the United States, is it time to send special forces into Pakistan to take care of business? I also asked him in that conversation whether during the course of his tenure he'd ever had a direct line on bin Laden or Ayman al-Zawahiri. I can't tell you that I was able to get any inside information from the president in that regard, but I certainly did ask the question. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a privilege for me, and I know for all of us. Mr. President, welcome back to the Michael Smerconish program.
Michael, it's great to talk to you again.
Thank you, sir. I'm hoping I'll be able to quickly run through about a dozen questions for you.
I will try to keep my answers short and sweet.
Well, that was my nice way of saying it. Did you like that?
It wasn't that subtle, man. I'm going to try to keep pace.
Mr. President, 5 times in the past, I asked you about the hunt for bin Laden, including whether you were prepared to take action in Pakistan. I want to begin by thanking you for doing exactly that which you promised on this program.
Well, Michael, you remember even before I was president, during the campaign, I said that if we got a beat on that guy, we were going to go after him wherever he was. And that caused some controversy at the time.
I remember.
But as you well know, justice demanded it. The safety of the American people demanded it. And, you know, when I was up at the ceremony for the 10th anniversary of 9/11, seeing all those families and them knowing that justice was done, I think it was a great testament to wonderful work by our intelligence teams and, of course, our Navy SEALs who carried out an incredible operation.
I have a lingering question. I hope you won't mind.
Go ahead.
There you sat the night before at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Seth Meyers tells a joke about bin Laden. You laughed, and now we know, in retrospect, you'd sat there already having given the order. As you smiled, what was running through your mind?
Well, I will tell you that whole night, what was running through my mind is the safety of those folks who were going out there, because this was an incredibly dangerous mission. All kinds of things could have gone wrong, as everybody I think knows subsequently. The helicopter had some problems as it was landing in the compound. And so, throughout the month leading up to this event, as we were looking at how this operation would unfold, the incredible discipline and precision with which these guys operated, we also knew that it carried a great deal of risk. And my main concern was just making sure that we got our guys back safe.
Now comes the news that we've taken out Anwar al-Awlaki. Did you give that order?
I can't talk about the operational details, Michael. This is something that we had been working with the Yemeni government on for quite some time. There's been significant cooperation at the intelligence levels with a lot of countries in the region. We are very pleased that Mr. Awlaki is no longer going to be in a position to directly threaten the United States homeland as well as our allies around the world. This is the guy who was at the forefront of ordering the Christmas Day bomber to carry out his plans. They had put bombs in printer cartridges that were set to go off in U.S. cargo planes, and had it not been for outstanding intelligence work and cooperation with some of our partners, that could have been a catastrophe. So this was a guy who was operationally involved in trying to kill Americans, and the fact that he is now no longer around to initiate the kind of propaganda that also was recruiting people all around the world to that murderous cause, I think is something that's very good for American security.
Mr. President, how many hostile acts must Pakistan commit before we end all funding? And do you accept Admiral Mullen's assessment that the al-Haqqani network acts as a veritable arm of the ISI?
Well, there's no doubt that you have extremists in Pakistan, in the border region, that are crossing the border into Afghanistan and attacking our guys. And we have pushed Pakistan very hard on this. Now, keep in mind that Pakistan has also provided us outstanding cooperation in going after al-Qaeda. But they still have in their territory people who are carrying out actions, particularly in Afghanistan, that are endangering our troops. So we've been very firm with them about needing to go after safe havens inside of Pakistan, but we've tried to also preserve the intelligence cooperation that we've obtained that's allowed us to go after al-Qaeda in a very effective way. There's no doubt that the relationship is not where it needs to be, and we are going to keep on pressing them to recognize that it is in their interest, not just ours, to make sure that extremists are not operating within their borders.
Did Admiral Mullen get it right about al-Haqqani?
Well, I think Mike's testimony expressed frustration over the fact that safe havens exist, including the Haqqani network safe haven inside of Pakistan. I think that the intelligence is not as clear as we might like in terms of what exactly that relationship is. But my attitude is whether there is active engagement with Haqqani on the part of the Pakistanis, or rather just passively allowing them to operate with impunity in some of these border regions, they've got to take care of this problem.
Mr. President, let's talk about the debt. Do you think that any plan to address the budget deficit should include only tax increases, only spending cuts, or, as I suspect you will say, a combination of both? And if it is the latter, in what proportion? Well,
you heard during the debt ceiling debate me out there repeatedly saying we need a balanced approach. I've already signed into law $1 trillion worth of spending cuts on programs that we either don't need, some of which are actually very valuable programs, but nevertheless, all of us have to make some sacrifices. I've put forward a plan that has an additional $500 billion in spending cuts, and make some very difficult choices around things like agricultural subsidies and how folks in the civil service are financing their retirements. But when you do all those cuts, you're still not going to be closing the entire deficit. And if we want to fully stabilize our debt and our deficits, then you've also got to combine it with some revenue. And what I've said is something that the vast majority, not just the Democrats, but actually a sizable number of Republicans agree with as well, which is that there's got to be a revenue component. There are wealthy Americans who I think are patriots and are willing to do their part as long as they are knowing that their money is going to closing the deficit or for programs that are going to help make us more competitive. And if we make modest adjustments, closing loopholes, making sure that the wealthy are paying their fair share, making sure that a guy like Warren Buffett is paying the same tax rate as his secretary, then we can actually stabilize our debt and deficits for at least a decade, if not more. And that's the plan that I've put forward. I'm hoping that Congress will act on it.
My wife and mother are both realtors. And my wife in particular every night at dinner talks about the soft market.
Right.
Here's what she reports, Mr. President. She says that an increasing number of deals are short sales where people are upside down on their mortgages. Right. She finds that the banks are ill-prepared to do these deals and wonders what can you do to spur the housing market as well as bring relief to people whose homes are worth less than their mortgages.
Well, one of the things we're trying to do is to work with the banks to accelerate a short sale process. And for your listeners who aren't in real estate, a short sale is an option that prevents foreclosure, but it means that the bank's going to actually do better net than if they actually foreclosed on the mortgage. So our attitude has been this is a smart thing to do for families who are trying to sell their homes rather than have them foreclosed upon and all the consequences of that. Let's see if we can move that short sale forward. The part of the problem that we have these days is that a lot of mortgages are not held by banks. They got sliced and diced, packaged into these mortgage securities, and so they've got service companies, and untangling all the legal issues involved there have been difficult. The big thing that we're talking about doing right now that could have an impact on millions of American homeowners is helping them take advantage of historically low rates. We have not seen as many refinancings of mortgages as we would have expected, given how low rates are, partly because there are a whole bunch of upfront fees.
Well, what you would hear from her is that there's a funk out there, that the product is good, that it's inexpensively priced, comparatively speaking, and that interest rates are at historic lows. But there's this mental malaise that has set in where people are all looking for a sign before they jump in the water.
Well, part of it's psychology, but look, part of it, to be honest, is just you've still got this shadow inventory of all these homes that are still on the market. We went on this building binge over the course of a decade, and as a consequence, you just have a whole bunch of homes, particularly in some states like Nevada and Florida and California, Arizona, where the supply greatly exceeds demand. Now, what we're seeing, I think, is that the housing market is beginning to bottom out. Mortgages the mortgage interest rates are at a historic low, and if we can just start getting people who are ready to buy, have good credit, ready to go, them going ahead and dipping their toe in the water and making those purchases, then hopefully we can get a virtuous cycle and housing prices can start stabilizing. Keep in mind, though, the one thing, Michael, that's important, and I think your wife would agree with this, is people's expectations of this enormous appreciation in their home values every single year. Those days are not going to come back anytime soon. And I think that purchasers have to have a understanding that they've got to look at all the information, make sure that they understand their mortgages, don't get in over their heads. But obviously, home ownership is still going to be a central part of the American dream, and we want to encourage that.
Yesterday, a woman named Susan called the radio program. I thought she asked a tremendous